Hi everybody, this is Miss Chu, and today I'm going to speak to my kindergarten parents at Lost Creek. We have a tradition at Lost Creek Elementary where every year our kindergartners make their own little clay handprints. Unfortunately, this year I was not able to get the kindergarten clay hands printed in time for you to take home for Christmas. There were a couple of factors that led to that. First, I was in preterm labor with this little thing. She was trying to come out in October, so I was put on bed rest. But I'm very upset and disappointed that I wasn't able to get these kindergarten clay hands printed. So I'm going to show you how we can do it at home during this extra time that we have at home. I don't mean for this lesson to be a burden for you. This is something that you can do on your own time. I have my wonderful, almost 5-year-old assistant here with me, Kaylin. This is my oldest daughter, Kaylin, so she's going to be helping me with this lesson. I went to Walmart and I bought a box of Sculpey oven baked clay. It's just 1 pound of white clay. I think it was around $5, maybe $6. I could be wrong. The Walmart pickup is a blessing right now, and so you can add some art supplies to that list and we can do some art lessons at home through my YouTube channel. So there are instructions on the back. This is very simple to use. The only difficult part is controlling it. So I'm going to go ahead and open this clay.
My clay. Whoa!
Comes in a block. And so we're going to open it up, and it has to be worked with in order for it to warm up. So Kaylin keeps saying she wants some, but you can see that it's going to come in these little pieces right here. They already have it pieced up into these little pieces, so if you need a smaller amount, then you can get a smaller amount. So basically when we get it out of the package, you have to play with it. We have to warm it up. The heat from your hands, the oils from your hands are going to help this clay soften up. This is called wedging, or wedging our clay. And I realize that I'm not talking to potters, I'm not talking to ceramics gurus and artists, but this is a chance for you to get your blood pumping and have some fun with your kids. So I'm going to go ahead and get this clay softened up enough, and then I will show you how I cut out the circle, and then we will print Kaylin's hand, and then we will put it in the oven. Okay, so I've gotten my clay to the point where I can take one hand and I can reshape it. It is warm enough to where I can play with it just a little bit. The template that I have used in order to acquire this shape for the kindergarten clay handprints is just an old coffee can. So if you have a coffee can laying around the house, it would be perfect to trace around the shape that the coffee can makes with a circle, get it cut out, and get it printed. I'm going to look around my kitchen to see if I can find something very similar to this shape. So I rummaged around my kitchen to see if I can find some templates that I could use to trace a circle out with that have a pretty close size reference to the clay hands that I print out using a coffee can. Just keep in mind that every time you are firing or baking clay, what's happening is all of the moisture is being removed from that material, so that's what turns it hard. So it might shrink just a little bit, just keep that in mind. I've had Kaylin placing her hand on top of a couple of items that I found in the kitchen. The first thing that I found is the container of whey protein. So if you put your child's hand on top of that, you'll see that it fits pretty well on top of that. So this might be a really good thing to trace around. Here's a little plate. Again, Kaylin's hand fits pretty well in there, and she will be in kindergarten next year, so her hand will be a little bit bigger next year. A bowl. I could trace the bowl, and then even this little pan has a really nice circle. They are all very close to the size of the opening of a coffee can. So if you don't have a coffee can, I don't have a coffee can, I have a Keurig. Just use what you got. Now we are going to take our clay, and if you have a rolling pin, that's great. If you don't, no big deal. You can still do this without a rolling pin. I take the palm of my hand and I flatten it like a pancake. We are making a slab. You're going to have to stand up. I flip it over, taking my hand, flattening it out. Kaylin's doing it with me. And I keep flipping it over and I keep applying pressure. If you've ever made pizza dough from scratch, then you might be really good at this. Taking the palm of my hand and I'm applying pressure using my muscles, and I'm trying to acquire the size of whatever I have chosen to use as a template to trace with. I'm going to flatten this out just a little bit. As far as the thickness, I'd say about a ½ inch thick. So if you need to take a toothpick or a knife or a pencil, and if you need to stick it down on the inside of it, that's where I'm at right now. I'm at about a ½ inch, which is pretty good for this type of lesson. I do have a little hole in it now, so I'm just gonna try to pinch that together. This clay is very forgiving. If you get air bubbles in it, it won't explode. I'm going to continue pressing down on my slab. This is called a slab of clay until I get the size that I want. And if you need to use a rolling pin to roll it out, maybe that's more helpful for you, you can do that. I like doing things the hard way, it seems. Alright, so I'm getting really close to the circle on the whey protein can. I can also use the plate. I think I'm going to use the plate just because it's going to be easier for me to draw around the plate with either a toothpick or a pencil. All right. I think I'm pretty happy with this size right now. So the next step is to place your template on top of your slab, and we're just going to trace around it. I'm going to use that toothpick that I just had. The toothpick that I just had.
I don't even know where I just did it right there.
Probably stuck in her clay. Alright, I'll get another one.
It's stuck in my plate and I'll get hurt.
No, you won't. It'll be fine. You'll figure it out. You'll find it. Okay, so I'm just going to use a toothpick to trace around that template. Normally when I roll these out on my slab roller in my art room, I take that coffee can and I just press into the huge slab and I do several circles at a time. But this will allow us the chance to actually take our time, cut these out nice and neat. So I'm going to remove the plate from the slab, a little bit of suction there. And as you can see, I drew that circle around there. So now I'm just going to grab a butter knife and I'm going to cut it out. So here's my butter knife. I'm going to very carefully cut out along that line. And then we will print Kaylin's hand.
Well, I actually made a little K.
You did make a little K. It's beautiful.
That has a little face on it.
A K for
Kaylin.
and a K for
Casey.
and a K for
Naughty.
for Keelani. That's right. That's why our YouTube channel is called Triple K Art Studios.
I need to show you the face.
We're a K family. Okay, after you get your circle cut out with your butter knife, now is the time to print it with your child's hand. And something that I did forget to do that I need to do right now is I need to preheat my oven to 275. So now it's ready for your child's handprint. So Kaylin is going to take her, I always have the children use their dominant hand, so the hand that they write with. She's going to spread out her fingers. We're going to place her hand in the middle of the circle, and I don't allow the child to push yet. What I do is with my fingers, I have them place their hand nice and still, and then I take my fingers, I push their thumb in to the clay, and they always say, "Oh, that feels so funny." And then I push,
No, that hurts.
I push mommy finger, brother finger, sister finger, baby finger. Be very careful that you don't hurt their fingers. I always try to apply even pressure all over the joints of the fingers
It hurts
because I don't want to hurt him.
bit.
She's saying it hurts a little bit. This clay is a little bit stiffer and a little bit firmer than the clay we use at Lost Creek. After you have the fingers in place, don't let them move their hand. Now here's the important part. You're going to have them raise their elbow. You need to get up on your knees on your stool. And we are going together push down with the palm of their hand. So we're going to push down together. Ready? Push, 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 push. And we're done. Lift up your hand. And as you can see, there is Kaylin's handprint right there. The last thing I always do with these hands is I flip them over. As soon as I print their hands, I take a writing utensil, I write their name, the year, and then their classroom teacher's initials. So that's up to you whether or not you want to have that memory on the back of your clay hand. But I'm going to go ahead and scratch Kaylin's name in the back with the year 2020. What a year so far. All right, and the next time I'll be doing this with Kaylin, it will be in her kindergarten class at Lost Creek with me. I'm going to put COVID-19 on here just because this is a very monumental time that our children are going to be learning about in their history books. If you would like a hole to hang this, I don't know if any of the ones I have right here have holes in them. No, they don't. I put command strips on her baby one and I hang it on the wall, and it hasn't fallen down yet. The command strips hold it very well. But if you would like a hole, I usually put holes in them because this is normally a Christmas lesson and a lot of people like to hang them up around the Christmas tree or on a mantle or on the wall. If you would like a hole to hang this up with, you're going to need to think about the diameter of a pencil. A pencil is a perfect tool to press a hole into it. Found a pencil, and I always place the hole right at the top, right above the middle finger. I usually go in between a couple of the fingers depending on how big that child's hand is. So I'm going to take that hole. Good job. You need to go a little bit from the top so it doesn't tear. It might have a little bit of an overlay on the back. I usually just leave mine because it gives it a little bit of character. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of blend it in a little bit. Now, the last thing I like to do is clean it up just a little bit. I'm going to take my finger.
And I made Garu.
Yes, you did. I'm going to show you the edges of this. As you can see, the edges are very sharp. I'm just going to take my finger and smooth out those edges. At Lost Creek, I usually take a wet wash rag and I smooth out all of the edges before they dry. And then once they are dry, yeah, I'm revealing all of the work that I do to these clay hands right now. Once they are dry, I take a Scotch-Brite and I sand all of the edges to make them nice and smooth. You don't have to do that. This clay is going to allow a really nice smooth surface if you just smooth it out like this with your fingers. Okay, so this is something that your child would love to help you with. They would love to be a part of this. This is a tradition at Lost Creek. Every kindergarten student for a very long time has made one of these clay hands. And a lot of parents enjoy getting one from all of their children that go through Lost Creek, and I really would hate for you to not have one if you have other children that have handprints at home. So the next step, after you have practiced as much craftsmanship as your patience will allow, is to place it on a cookie sheet and bake it for 15 minutes. Okay, so I placed my handprint in the middle of a cookie sheet. Kaylin made a nice little K person with arms. It's decorated, it's very cute. We're gonna bake that as well. And I'm not really sure what this is, but she's proud of it.
That's my Maui's hook.
She made Maui's hook and it looks just like it. That's really cool. Any Moana fans out there?
And a seahorse.
And a seahorse. All right. So we're going to place this cookie sheet in the oven. We're going to bake it for 15 minutes and then we will discuss how we can add color. Now, I took my clay out and I did a quick little fingernail test, and my clay is still a little bit soft. I'm going to let it cool off just so I can make sure that it doesn't have to cool first, and then I will check it again and see if we need to bake it again. Okay, so after I removed the cookie sheet from the oven after 15 minutes of baking time, the clay still felt a little bit soft. I pressed my fingernail into it and I could see that indentation. And so I decided just to let it cool off a little bit, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I didn't put it back in, because 15 minutes for a slab this thickness was perfect. It's starting to cool off now. It is turning hard. The more it cools off, the harder it seems to become. So by tradition at Lost Creek, the girls' handprints have always been pink and the boys have been blue. And the glaze that I use when I glaze them, the pink is called Pretty in Pink and the blue is called Cornflower Blue. And it has been the same for a long time at Lost Creek. My daughter is going to do pink. This has dried very nicely. It's very firm. If I drop it, I don't think it's going to break, but I'm pretty sure that if I actually tried, I could probably break it. So just be very careful. Same as with a piece of clay. It's going to break if you're rough with it. So I'm going to mix a little bit of red into a lot of white to try to get a light pink. You are going to need some sort of sealer. Mod Podge works great. You can either use the jar of Mod Podge or the spray can. They both do the same thing. I prefer this over this. I just use this for certain things. But you can buy both of them at Walmart. You can get on Walmart.com. Walmart pickup's amazing. So I'm going to use this plate, and I'm going to add a lot of white and just a little bit of red. And I'm going to try to mix enough paint to cover the front and the back of Kaylin's handprint. When I glaze them at Lost Creek, I actually dip them. So I do about 120 of these every year. So what I do is after they're all fired, I just take the classes, I divide them up, and then I just take the clay pieces and I have a lot of glaze in a container, and I just dip them. And then I let them dry, and then I refire them. It's actually quite a process. I first have to roll out all the slabs with my slab roller. I cut all of the handprint circles out, and then while the students are doing something at their tables, I call them back one at a time. I print their hand with them, explain to them the process, let them touch and feel the clay. And then basically it's all me, because I have let the students do it in the past, and it's really hard to teach kindergartners how to do this type of thing. So now I'm going to add just a little bit of red into my white. I'm going to mix it all up and see what kind of color I get. I'm getting pretty close. You do want to make sure that you mix enough paint so that you don't have to try to make this matching color again. So I'm getting pretty close to the color that I want. I'm going to test it out on my handprint just to see what it looks like. I like it. I think this is, I rarely get it right on the first try, but I kind of like how this is looking right now. So as you can see, it's really similar to the light pink that I use for these clay handprints when it comes to the glaze. The only reason we're going to seal it is because you're going to want it to look shiny. If you have other handprints, you're going to want it to match your other children. So we'll do our best to try to match it. So that Mod Podge is going to make it look very shiny, and it's also going to make it more durable. So here's what the handprint looks like so far. There. I know my lighting's not very good, but it's a lot pinker than what it looks to you. I'm going to let this top dry before I paint the back, because I don't want my fingerprints to be in it. So you might want to paint the top part, let it dry, and then paint the back. So they recommend 8 to 10 hours. I usually just set things overnight, and then in the morning they're perfectly dry. These do release a lot of fumes. You might want to be in a well-ventilated area, or you might not. So after your Mod Podge dries, you have your kindergarten handprint to enjoy. I would love to know who did this. It would make me very happy if I saw pictures I'm so sorry that I wasn't able to get your clay hands to you this year. It was just a really crazy year. After I had my baby and I came in over Christmas break to try to work on firing my clay hands, I fired 2 classes. I had a Mrs. Johnson's class in the kiln and I had Mrs. Casey's class in the kiln. And I was in there all day working. I was keeping an eye on the kiln. I was doing everything the right way. The kiln shut off, and there's this mechanism on my kiln called a kiln sitter, and you hear it slam down and it shuts the kiln off automatically. And normally you're good to go. The kiln shut off every single time I fired it. Everything has worked fine. I came in the next morning and I opened up my kiln to see this. I had a full-out meltdown. This has happened to almost every artist that uses a kiln, but I never expected it to happen to me. It completely melted all of the clay hands in there and I was devastated. It was so bad that it even cracked 2 of my kiln shelves, which will have to be replaced. So we had orders for electricians to come and work on the kiln, and I was planning on getting them out to you for Mother's Day. Can't do that now, so I hope that you're able to do this at home with your kids. Again, I'm sorry. Accept full responsibility. I should have gone back and shut off my kiln manually instead of entrusting a machine to do it for me. Don't touch it. Please enjoy this time home with your kids. I know it's hard being a mom and a teacher and a dad and a teacher and having to work and having to cook 3 meals a day, but your teachers are there for you. If you have any questions for any of us, please don't hesitate to contact us and we will help you as much as we can. Bye!